In November, I told all of you to go and buy Bocchi stock, and now I'm back with my Lambo to rub it in. Even the godfather of anitube backed me up on this.
Bocchi the Rock has been my biggest surprise in anime all year. Bar none.
But now that the rest of the community has caught up, there's a disturbing trend that we need to talk about. You've read these reviews already. Or any number of these literally me posts. Obviously, I'm not dogging people for finding a character relatable, but these sorts of posts show a really terrible engagement with the story. Let me explain. Most of these tweets and reviews revolve around the fact that Bocchi is an introvert, except that's the exact opposite of the story the show is telling. Bocchi is not an introvert. She's an extrovert with crippling anxiety. Of course, nobody is really an extrovert or an introvert or ambivert or whatever other verticals you think you have. A person's introversion to extroversion changes based on the environment they're put in. It is true that there are people who prefer more or less stimulation, but like seemingly every 19th century psychological index, it's better understood as a continuum between two extremes, or in other words, a spectrum. A spectrum that any given individual moves around on based on their attitude, comfort, environment, stress, etc. But this isn't a psych video. So why is it important that Bocchi is an extrovert? Well, the entire conceit of the show is Bocchi's internal battle between her desire for admiration of her musical talents versus the all-consuming pit in her stomach that she gets from receiving that admiration. If Bocchi was an introvert, there wouldn't be any story. She'd derive her energy, passion, enjoyment from herself. Her extroversion is the driving force of the plot. I feel like you're still not buying this, so let's go a little deeper. The original definition of intro and extrovert laid out by Carl Jung in the Psychological Types is very simply the difference between those who focus their energy on their inner world versus the external world. Of course, in modern times, introvert and extrovert have taken on the role of being a smart person's way of saying shy or outgoing. It wouldn't be the first time a psychological term got Gladwelled into a shell of its former self, but we need to reject this definition of introversion, because introversion is not a disability. For the same reason we don't say schizophrenia is a personality quirk, we can't say that introversion is just the inability to socialize with other people. The entire point of the show is Bocchi overcoming her shyness. If we conflate this shyness with introversion, then we are effectively saying that introversion is a failure to be overcome, which it isn't. Shyness will limit you greatly, as Bocchi and probably a lot of us understand. Being a wallflower is a thing to be overcome, but drawing your happiness from within is not. And this whole mess is even more confusing when you consider the fact that there's a nearly perfect depiction of an introvert in the form of Ryu. Ryu is an introvert. Most of her motivations come from herself. She doesn't constantly hang around with the other bandmates, and she plays tricks and starts rumors for her own enjoyment. She is the quintessential introvert. So if you want to use introvert as a longhand version of shy, then whatever, it's a free country. But if you want to understand why Bocchi the Rock is compelling and why so many of us feel drawn to Bocchi as a character, then it's important to see the difference between a character flaw and a character type. The reason the plot works, the reason the character interactions feel real, and more than likely the reason you enjoy the show is because Bocchi is not an introvert.